Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to Starsector. This is Ducky reporting from Cycle 245 in the Persian sector. And by popular demand, I have been asked to show my current pirate fleet. So, this is the fleet as a whole. I will go over some of the ships briefly, and then I'll show you a combat. Firstly, to note, for this to work, we have Derelict Operations to reduce the deployment point cost of ships by 6% per DMod. The more these ships accumulate, those orange markers, the DMods, the more of them overall that we can deploy. Like this one here, with its 5 DMods, is going to cost us 13 deployment points, which makes it kind of like the cost of a destroyer to put on the field, which is very silly. And what are we getting from all these Atlas Mark IIs? Well, mainly we're getting the only capital ship in the game that has accelerated ammo feeder and some large gun slots. So very cheap, large ballistic pressure, and the 2 railguns up front, but we'll get to the fit in a minute. So you'll need Derelict Operations to do something similar, and you're going to also need Support Doctrine. Support Doctrine is important for all of our ships that don't have officers. I do not have nearly enough story points to put mercenary officers in all of these ships, so to make sure that they all perform at their best, we have Support Doctrine, which grants all of them helmsmanship, damage control, combat endurance, and ordnance expertise, basically giving them the abilities of a level like 3.5 to level 4 officer. We also get deployment cost reduction here, so there's also that. And faster command point recovery is kind of nice, but not super necessary. I don't normally give a ton of orders with this fleet. So those are the 2 crucial skills, Support Doctrine and Derelict Operations. You could build a fleet not using those, but it would be a very different pirate fleet than what we have here. So, let's talk about the ships briefly. All of the Atlas Mark IIs, for simplicity, have been fitted with the same things. They have no point defense. Each of them has ballistic rangefinder, which mainly boosts the range of the railguns, integrated targeting unit for maximal range on the large guns, and of course helps the railguns, and expanded missile racks, because I really like missiles, and I have equipped each of these with a single squall and hurricane Murph. So we have some shield pressure, we have some armor breaking. This is a generalist fleet designed basically to fight most of the regular bounties that you'll encounter in the game. I would not take it up against endgame stuff unless you are a way better commander than me, or you're backing it up with some other ships that are non-pirate, like maybe a Paragon or a Radiant. But the Atlas Mark II fit is very straightforward. The railgun, the Mark 9 for shield pressure, the Hephaestus assault gun for armor breaking, and then the 2 missiles aforementioned. What captain skills are best on this? Well, I didn't customize my captains to derive these, but if I had to pick something, I would say Systems Expertise for faster and more frequent activation of accelerated ammo feeder, and Ballistic Mastery because we shoot a lot of bullets downrange. My third pick is probably Elite Missile Spec, although I wouldn't intentionally grab that if you were going to build a fleet to do this. I would go for Systems Expertise, Ballistic Mastery, and probably Targeting Analysis for the bonus damage. And our next ship is the Pirate Eradicator. Notably, it has a burn drive system instead of accelerated ammo feeder like the regular Eradicator, so it can get into combat very quickly, and it wins in disengages because it can keep up with the enemy. So what does this Eradicator do in the context of the fleet? Well, it keeps up with the Atlases, it repositions, and it provides additional pressure. With the 2 hypervelocity drivers and the heavy mauler. We have integrated targeting unit and escort package, so we can stack range bonuses to further assist our larger ships. There's no point defense in the rear slots, just Vulcans in the front slots, and a single railgun for additional pressure. The real killing punch that these Eradicators do is the AI tends to try and fire all of the Atroposes all at once, which against large targets is very good, and it comes out to be, I think, an average positive. The Atropos is probably not the best missile you could use, but it is the missile I use because it is reliable. It tracks, it has a little bit of ammo, and it works better if you have an officer with missile spec, which I don't, because all my officers are in the Atlases. This one guy here is the exception. If I were to pick officer skills to put on these Eradicators for officers, probably combat endurance, ballistic mastery, and maybe a tanking skill like impact mitigation or something, so they can absorb hits. Because these Eradicators, if we go to look at the hull values and the armor rating, 7,200 hull on this one, 960 armor. We compare that to one of the Atlases, 7,200 hull, 600 armor. The Eradicators are more durable, just by a smidge. And of course the one with no DMods will be markedly more tanky. But you want the Eradicators to absorb hits rather than the Atlases if you can. And for our next ship, we have the Manticore. This is kind of a little experimental point defense fit. I think we didn't quite have the right guns. Oh yeah, I'm just out of railguns. Ignore that. This one is the one that is set up the way I had intended. So the main thing is that it brings a Devastator cannon to the field, which is our primary way of dealing with enemy fighters. You may have noticed a distinct lack of point defense on the Atlases, and honestly the 4 Vulcans on each Eradicator, they can't be everywhere, right? So the Manticores here are for putting on our Atlases as dedicated escorts, and that's really all they do. With the Devastator, the integrated point defense, and the escort package, they do that job very well. Okay, and moving right along to our Enforcers, the Enforcers are basically doing the same thing as the Eradicators, except that they bring more point defense to the table. We have flak cannons, we have hypervelocity drivers for long-range pressure, and we have harpoons to deliver the killing blow, although you could use other missiles. I like having the harpoons here for variety and for their absurd range. Lastly, the bulk of the fleet, second only to the Atlas Mark II spam, is all of these Vanguards. Now, the Vanguards I have not done anything with. I have just clicked autofit and put them on the strike fit. Why? Because I'm lazy, and because they're very effective at the one thing they need to do. The autofit gives them expanded missile racks, and they come with Reapers. So each of them gets 6 Reapers, which is 24,000 damage potentially in total, and it just melts armor as though it wasn't there if it does land a hit. I've seen the Vanguards get consistently lucky with shooting the Reapers, and even when they're not doing that, they got the 2 light needlers, and they have rugged construction. So they can block for us, and we don't really need to worry about them being unrecoverable on death. Because I'm on Iron Man, I cannot just reload when I lose a battle, or when I can't recover a ship that I like, so that kind of helps mitigate the cost of printing new ships, which at this stage of the game with 37 million credits isn't that big of a deal, but it was earlier on. And in your campaign, or just starting out, these are just a fine choice to just throw into the fray. So the last thing that is actually part of the fleet is the Colossus Mk3, which I'm using only because it is a pirate ship and it fits the theme. If you were being optimal, you might use a Condor instead, or a Drover, but we're playing a pirate fleet, so we have Colossus Mk2s, and they are equipped, of course, with 2 Talon wings. Beyond that, they just have a couple front Vulcans. They should never be in enemy range. We don't want that. For S-mods, recovery shuttles, solar shielding, and additional berthing. Additional berthing is actually because I've accumulated so many D-mods on other ships that I can't quite hit the amount of crew I need to crew the fleet, so that's also why I have this Starliner here. Of course, we have 2 Promethei for carrying all of our fuel, and the Colossi have enough cargo space to carry supplies. There is also this Doom here, which is the backup plan if the fleet fails and I absolutely need to solo something. Always good to have a backup plan. Kind of cheating because the Doom is of course not a pirate ship, but shh, it's fine. Again, we're on Iron Man. I am somewhat risk averse. So, having walked you through the look of the fleet and what ships I have, let's go and find a fight to do. Ah, there we go. There's a pirate bounty. Not a very rich one, though. I will also say there are a few things you shouldn't engage that are kind of risky to fight with this fleet, and that is multiple Paragons. In any fleet that has Pegasi in it. These guys here, especially if they're on the strike fit, because they may nuke a few of your ships and fold your line. But let's go take on this pirate. One of the downsides of this fleet that you need to be aware of is the cost of repairs. Not that they cost much in supplies, but when we look at one of the Atlas Mark IIs, they recover only 2% combat readiness per day, and they eat 20% per deployment. So every time you fight, you're looking at 10 days until you recover, and anytime you slam into a hyperspace storm, same problem if the Atlas is the one that catches the hit. You'll note I haven't really done any S-mods in this fleet. I haven't decided what I want yet, or if I want to commit to that, because again, those story points take time to earn. So I've kind of just been sitting on my 28 story points, wondering if I should. Solar shielding could be an option. Probably not the best option, but it would save on the slowdown and the repair issues. Okay, we're here. Oh, they have immediately burned toward us. This fleet doesn't really have much, but again, we're not really here to stress test the fleet so much as to just show how it works so that you guys can take this as inspiration and then move into doing your own stuff. So I like to have at least 6 of the Atlas Mark IIs deployed, and then we follow that with at least a couple Vanguards, and then a few of each of the other ships. Like to have 2 Eradicators and a few Destroyers, and then it doesn't really matter beyond that. We honestly have enough points at this stage to deploy almost everything. Our fleet is that cheap. Maybe, yeah, if we unqueue a few, we can deploy 1 more Atlas into the battle. There we go. So this fleet does require some micromanagement. As previously discussed, the Manticores function as escorts, so lock them to some random atlases in the fleet. Same with the Eradicators. If they're on the field, stick them in. You can kind of let same with the Enforcers. Lock the Enforcers to the atlases. The Eradicators you can let go and do whatever they want. The other thing that definitely needs a waypoint order is your Colossi, so they don't overextend. We're going to put ours about here. And then the kind of painful thing of running this fleet is you have to keep your Mark IIs, your Atlas Mark IIs, together. Whether through waypoint order or defend order or civilian rally order. I like to use regular waypoints because I'm lazy. You may get better results with other options though. So let's deploy the remainder of our ships, get that Atlas into the line, that Colossus into the back line, and the Vanguards basically need no real instruction, just send them off to do whatever it is they do, hope they get lucky. Okay, and while our Atlases slowly move into position, we can watch our other ships work. In case it weren't apparent already, this is also a build where you can just let your fleet do the combat. You don't have to personally pilot anything, and a fleet like this, maybe with a few more personal tweaks, will get you through most of the easily accessible content in the game. Again, I wouldn't want to run this against the endgame. I haven't quite figured out how to fight the Remnant or the Threat with it yet, although I know other players have done it. Okay, and there is a classic example of the Eradicator wasting its Atroposes, but that's okay. We're pirates, you can't expect us to be efficient. So our Atlases are starting to pull up into formation, and you can see here just glorious pressure and area denial. I should make sure I'm on autopilot, that might be important, as my ship was actually just drifting forward this whole time, not doing anything intelligent. And let's add my personal flagship here to the line somewheres. And of course, in a battle between Atlas Mark IIs, it's really just who can field more of them, and the answer is of course going to be the player in most cases. Just look at all of that good pressure that they're doing kind of at the edge of their range. And there we go, there's Mervs, there's Hephaestus Assault Gun, there's a Vanguard doing its duty with the Light Needlers. Excellent. And enemy ships are dropping. The main challenge of this fight is actually going to be this Invictus. That's kind of the main potential threat. The more of its escorts that we take down, the better. You'll see here our whole line is kind of inching forward. That's a sign that we are holding the center very well, and we could push the line forward. So I think we'll do that. Let's pause the game, and we're going to kind of turn the line toward this Invictus to a degree, best I can. So grab all the Atlases that you can see, give them each a waypoint order, hit tab, and you'll see some of the waypoints disappeared, and that tells me from that line for that waypoint, this Atlas didn't have a new marker. Put him there. And now that we've given all the Atlases their orders, we want to move the Colossi kind of into a position behind them. And one Atlas down, that's okay. Throw another ship into the mix. We have an Eradicator left. I don't want to deploy this Atlas that only has 17% CR though. And of course the Doom is only there if I fleet wipe and need to clear in an emergency. So we'll just move the whole horde kind of diagonally to the left. Now in a toe-to-toe fight, obviously the Invictus is just going to crack a few of our ships, and that's going to be unfortunate. But enemy is running out of stuff. Oh, he's actually alive. Nice. Nice. Okay. Now the thing about the Invictus is that basically we're going to have to kill it by swarming it. I'm kind of just waiting for our moment, and I think it's going to be now. So what we'll do is we're just going to take the entire fleet ball, focus down their enemy Atlas there, and you'll note basically every ship I've now queued to do this task. This is where the fleet really shines, is when we can point all of our guns toward a small number of foes. And then we're going to do the same thing with that Mora. Whether we drive it back or kill it, I'll take that result. There's no way that the Invictus on the left, even if it were firing optimally, there's no way that it's going to crack all of our ships. And that Mora is basically the last large thing standing between us and then doing this same strat to the Invictus and kind of focus firing it down. Okay, there we go. And there's proper use of the Atropos spam from the AI. See, 50-50. Okay, and now our next goal is we just take the entire fleet, we run it at that Invictus. The thing to note is that even if we lose ships, those ships are going to gain D-mods, hopefully, and then that functionally makes them stronger in the context of this build, because their deployment cost goes down, we can field more ships. Honestly, given how we were able to deploy so many ships at the start of this fight, it might be wise for me to drop more Vanguards out of the fleet and replace them with more Eradicators, more Enforcers, more Colossi, even more Atlases, just to further enhance the amount of gun we put onto the field. That Eradicator is not looking too hot. Okay, but you're going to take losses, especially running into an Invictus. I think the most Invicti I have fought in one fight with this fleet, and kind of successfully won, was I think 2 or 3. It can be rough, and there's triple... Oh, he devastated all those Reapers down. Curse him. That's okay, there's more missiles, there's more DACA, and there's more Reapers. There we go. Some of them landed. His front armor is broken. That's kind of the thing about this fleet, is that it just does not let up if you can outnumber your enemy and then pile on like this. There we go, Reaper hit on the side, very good. And like there, Vanguard is running out of combat readiness. Don't worry about it. Just let your ships fight until they die. Trying to do secondary deployments and manage retreats with this fleet is stupid hard because the Atlases are so slow, you're just going to lose them. So it's very much all or nothing. Do it in one engagement or die. Which is actually not my preference, but that's just how this plays. And as a little auto-battler fleet to just kind of chill and collect bounty money and hang out, it works very well for that. I find it quite fun and quite pleasing to the eye in that context. Okay, and that's them basically defeated, and I bet you the Invictus was the target of the bounty, so we're just going to call that a win. And yes, Invictus has the star, so he was the bounty target. We're going to let the rest of them go. We're not worried about it. Okay, so this is kind of the problem with the fleet, is the Eradicator requires a story point to recover. At this stage, I could just print another Eradicator, but it wouldn't have 5 D-mods. And those D-mods are quite valuable, so we're going to spend the story point there and recover him. Take our loot. I'm actually going to throw the guns back. I don't really need them. I can build most of the guns in the game. It's really just the supplies and fuel that I care about. So what you can do to prevent your ships from costing story points to recover is there are 2 ways. You can put an officer in the ship, which makes it pretty much always recoverable. Actually, there are 3 ways. So put an officer in the ship. Second way is S-mod the ship. Even a single S-mod like this is enough to make the ship almost always recoverable, even without an officer. Ideally, I would put a single S-mod in every ship that wasn't going to have an officer. The third way is probably the least desirable because it costs ordnance points. The third way is to give your ships reinforced bulkheads, which ups your hull integrity by 40%, which is a pretty hefty health boost, but it makes it so your ship will not break apart and is almost always recoverable after battle. I don't actually recommend doing this because it's almost always going to be more valuable to spend those ordnance points on, doing damage, or in the case of this Eradicator, having that bonus range from escort package and ITU. But you can do it. So if you're struggling in the early game to keep your ship together and stack up D-mods, just put bulkheads on. Drop escort package in this case, put bulkheads on, and it'll be fine. You can always change it off later once you have more officers or more story points to use for S-mods. Okay, everyone, so that's the Pirate Fleet Showcase. I hope this is useful to some of you, and I bet you that there are maybe some of you that have some ideas for how to improve this or how to take it up against endgame enemies. If you have any of that knowledge, please do share it down in the comments. I am still learning how to work with this fleet, and obviously it's still not actually done. We're not fully S-modded and all that, so let me know your ideas and advice in the comments, both for my continued learning and for anyone else who is looking for build tips and stuff. And with all of that, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time.